from Florida's Space Coast, this is Your Career.
Welcome to Your Career. I'm Debbie Featherston, your host, and with me today are three members of HRSS Consulting, a local team that is based in Central Florida that does a lot of work for HR consulting. With me today, I have Rachel Castellion. Thank you for joining me.
Absolutely.
And Stuart Smith.
Thank you.
And Laurie Davis.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
I tell you, I am really glad to have the three of you because the topic around HR that we're going to focus on today is one that's really near and dear to my heart. Specifically, and the reason for it, working with organizations and dealing with HR or OD people, I often realize that they need help.
Sure.
Right?
Absolutely.
And so the whole focus of our conversation, and you're bringing your expertise to help anyone that's interested in HR, or maybe someone who's currently working in HR who might say, I need a little help.
Sure.
And so the topic here is what's the critical role, right? The critical role of HR in sustaining profitable growth. And that's really the focus. So Rachel, if you wouldn't mind starting off by just telling us a little bit about HRSS Consulting.
I'd be happy to. HRSS is an acronym that stands for Human Relations Strategies and Solutions. And the HRSS Consulting Group was founded and is led by Karen Gregory, who wishes she could be here today. So she's
out having fun in Ireland and wherever.
She's having a very good time. I see the Facebook pictures. But HRSS Consulting Group is a management consulting firm, and our focus is on organizational effectiveness, increasing productivity, and also supporting sustainable growth. Our client base is typically defense contractors or government-affiliated organizations with an employee base of between 100 to 500 employees. And some of the services that we provide are strategic planning, organizational assessments. We also do employee and leadership development and HR transformation.
That's great. Large scope of work that you do, but this is all designed to support HR, internal HR departments and organizations, right?
Yep.
So tell me, Laurie, a little bit about what is the role of HR?
HR right now, in the past several years, is going into a transformational period. HR maybe is looked upon as an administrative role, filing and pushing those papers, taking care of benefits or payroll. But HR has grown greatly to become a strategic partner to the business, the link between the business and the people, the employee's voice to the organization, to the owners of the company. HR has grown and grown and is becoming more of a department that adds profitability, is the face of the people, and has been growing that employee base for a company. It's moving in a different direction.
That's good. What was it? Can you tell me a little bit about what it has been? I can tell you things that, as I walk through the halls of different organizations, what they label the function, and it's not as favorable. So I'm glad to hear the positive, and maybe we should leave it there.
Yes.
But
well, in the past, I think a lot of companies have just taken someone who's a good employee that really cares about the company and the people and thinks, well, they're doing a great job and they seem pretty sharp, so let's make them the HR person. Yeah. Most of those folks do a wonderful job, try to do the best that they can, but they're really not educated into all the many functions of HR. And many of them sometimes get just very buried in their work. But that HR person behind the scenes needs to get out in front of the scenes. Recruiting and retention right now is a hot button out there. It's all about, if you don't have good people, you're not going to have a good company.
Well, and you've got to have people to fill that pipeline, right?
Yes.
That brings me to a question that comes front of mind. And Rachel, if you wouldn't mind addressing this one.
Sure.
Is there a correlation between leadership, company culture, and human resources? And if so, what kind of a impact does it have on the bottom line?
Okay, that's a really great question, and there absolutely is a relationship among leadership and culture and human resources. more studies have been done between leadership and culture, but really if you're an HR practitioner or a professional, you can see those parallels and you can figure out ways to impact it, as you should. If we're going to think in terms of HR as a strategic business partner as part of the team, then we need to think in those terms. So we have some ways in HR that we can directly impact that. Like for instance, with the pay systems. You know, we know our culture of an organization is essentially how employees are told to think, behave, and act. Whereas leadership, those executives, managers, the senior leaders, they're dictating the culture through their behaviors, what they're thinking about and how they're acting. And obviously that's going to affect the culture. So, but as an HR person, you can help affect that. For instance, if the leadership, they communicate that in their culture it's very important, teamwork is absolute priority, and they push teamwork. But if the pay system is set up where you're rewarded for individual work exclusively, and there aren't any types of recognition for team activities where you're making progress, then you're sending a mixed message to the employees. That can cause a huge problem.
Yeah, I see what you're saying, is because they're saying we want teams, and yet all the rewards are for the individual contributor.
Yes.
So the mixed message, therefore.
Yeah, and HR sees that. And that's where thinking strategically and taking the time to communicate what you're seeing can help leadership determine, okay, well, this is our culture, these are our strengths and our weaknesses, how do we want to proceed? As HR practitioners, professionals, we have that ability to see things quite a bit differently than others do. And this is a very powerful thing because we see, I think, broader, like the pay systems. And also recruiting and selection. I think it's a big one that Laurie brought up. With recruiting, if our culture, if we say that diversity and inclusion is important to us, but our employees don't really reflect that.
Right.
Again, another mixed message, and as HR professionals, we can absolutely bring that up as something we've noticed, and then leadership can then take the next steps to figure out, well, what do we really want here?
Interesting. Stu, let's get you into this conversation here. I'm just curious, you know, most companies have given HR a seat at the table. How would you say they're doing?
That's what I call an intriguing question, Debbie. So an intriguing question is one that has a lot of responses or a lot of answers. And so I think it's important for HR professionals, first of all, to define what at the table means for them in their own company, in their own culture. It's been about 15 years that we've been entertaining this question. And so there's this mixed bag of results. It's kind of the 20-80 rule. 20% of us are doing a really good job, and 80% of us need some help to get there, to be at the table. So let's define what at the table means. For me, it means being part of the decision-making process and being part of the strategic decision-making process. Let me give you a quick example. So a lot of times HR professionals might see the tactical things that are mixed messages, but they miss the overall strategy. And so HR professionals need to be in that strategic decision-making process. An example I would offer up, talk about recruiting and retention, is if you understand the strategy, it's which lever to push or pull to help the company become profitable. I was working with an organization that was in the mature phase of their business, and the strategic decision was, do we buy another company, right, and go down another path, or do we position ourselves to be sold? And so, because the HR folks didn't understand that strategy, the mechanisms to do recruiting were being done wonderfully, but they were missing the retention side. And so we were bringing the right people on board, but we were losing the people that we needed to position the company to be attractive to investors. So HR has to understand what the business strategy is first, and then how the HR strategy supports the execution of that. And I think that's the big difference for HR professionals, is to pick your head up off your own table, right, and look across and figure out what is the business strategy and how do I fit into that. Well, let me be clear about the example too, because there's some nuance in here.
All right, good.
So HR might be tempted to continue to be really good at recruiting, but we don't need to recruit people. We're positioning ourselves to be sold. right? We need to retain people because they had some legacy technology, they had some legacy, right? And so the HR role shouldn't have been on recruiting, it should have been on retention.
Yes.
Two completely different strategies, but they were running both full speed. And that causes big problems.
Yeah. Kind of a follow-up to that, how effective do you think HR has become in linking people, strategy, and performance?
Right. I think the key to this is alignment. And so an HR professional has to understand what is the strategy, how does HR play into that strategy, and then how do I align the functions that I have against that strategy. And so if you're cascading a strategy through an organization, right, taking it from the top and working it all the way to, I call it the 6-foot rule, to the people who are within 6 feet of the work or 6 feet of the customer.
Love it.
Right, so closest to that. If you're cascading that strategy through there, how does it permeate through all of those functions? So how does it permeate into the performance management system, into the systems that allow for more diversity of thought and more diverse perspectives and so on and so forth. So it's understanding that strategy, taking a look at what I'm responsible for, and then cascading that strategy through that to align it to that strategy.
Well, the one piece that I want to come back to that I didn't hear so well, and that I find sometimes is a breakdown in organizations, you know, they have the people linked to the strategy, but where's the accountability and the thread that goes through to tie it to performance? You know, and do they have the resources and the training and the ongoing, knowledge that they need to be able to, or mentoring, when I say knowledge, I mean converting it into practice.
And I think one of the pitfalls that we have as human resource practitioners is that we catch on to phrases like accountability and see it from a specific point of view and don't understand what it is that our leaders are actually asking us for. The other thing is that we don't understand what drives performance, to be quite honest. Right? A lot of times we don't take a system view and understand that performance is driven a lot of times more by the system they're performing in than the individual effort in that. And so how can you ever align accountability to a performance objective if you don't understand how the system drives that performance? So I think that one of the things HR professionals can do is to get a broader business sense and understand system thinking, right? So that they can contribute where leadership needs them to contribute. And don't fall victim to these catchphrases. Don't chase the technique. Right? So, you know, no one can tell me that the performance management system for most organizations actually improves performance.
But also it's having the fortitude to evolve and continually update. And if we have, like, for instance, a position description that isn't updated, not kept current, and the job evolves, then you have a huge disconnect.
Change, stay up, stay current.
Yes.
And that's a challenge.
It really is.
It can be. Challenge, because businesses move quickly and fast, and then you go back to, you know, the nuts and bolts of your business, you know, the document piece, even the employee handbook.
Absolutely.
It needs to be looked at constantly. These documents need to be looked at constantly and stay fresh and new.
Well, and in response to any new legislation or laws, you know, things like that.
And we're going to be very challenged in these next couple of years. There's a lot of changes coming.
Well, tell me, Laurie, I was going to ask you, what are some HR trends that HR professionals are having to address today?
I just brought with me, I was just going to refer to this. This is just some of the legal aspects that are coming in 2016, 2017. And some of these are already passed. Some of them are proposals that are still in the process of being passed. HR has a strong voice today at Washington on the Hill.
Good.
So you're looking at pay transparency. The executive order's already been passed. That's level of pays that are equal for all. The Cadillac tax, which is evolved into the Affordable Health Care Act, and how that's going to affect businesses and individuals. The actual affordable care reporting, how we report as a business, which is a financial pull there. Minimum wage laws are changing rapidly state by state, even, you know, as we speak. Extended FMLA leave and sick leave for federal contractors. Overtime tracking is becoming a very hot button, and how that overtime is being interpreted in companies. I-9 immigration reporting. It's going to be a challenge for all companies. The laws are going to get very strict, and documentations are going to be very strict. And the white collar law that's coming down, whether who is salaried exempt and who is non-salaried exempt, and what those job definitions are, and how much of your work is actually truly supervisory. And that's these are all things that companies have got to get prepared of, be on top of, ahead of, have plans, have really go through that process with training and educating your people, from managerial and HR staffing. Because if they don't understand what these changes are all about and how we're going to do it together, it may not be effective in the company.
No, and you want it to be...
HR alone cannot do it.
Yeah, and I think having that awareness, then you can be proactive instead of reactive. Which makes a huge difference, because then you're kind of feeding beforehand, so folks are prepared, and it doesn't feel like such a sudden shift.
And are these trends going to impact organizations of all sizes, or are we looking at more a mid-size and up? I mean, are we still insulating our 50 or below in terms of employees, or 35 and below?
I mean, it is largely 50 employees and above. I mean, there still is that small business factor out there that, you know, the mom and pop is not dead in our country. You know, that mom and pop business, they can still hire and have their own regulations and laws with their employees, you know. But once you hit that 50 marker, you have to comply.
Yeah, absolutely. And so staying on top of this, and are some of these going to impact not just the knowledge, but the skill set of the HR professional to be able to execute?
Definitely. Definitely. I think in today's time, and I'm running across this in some of our companies we work for, technology is fantastic, and I love technology, but we can't always depend and rely on technology when it comes to aspects with people management and human resources. I think a lot of companies are looking towards their technology that, well, this will manage it. This, you know, my technology, this has all my facts and my numbers. I can run a report. Here you go, I've got this. But it doesn't quite work that way, as you all know, because you're dealing with people. And a lot of it's education, coaching, training, culture, state of mind, which makes the health of the company.
And I think, Laurie, too, that it speaks to the HR professional, because the field is developing. The HR professional has to develop along with it. So you ask about the skills. So one of the things as a strategic business partner, being at the table, is to be able to interpret this, which is not the other part of the organization's expertise. Maybe you get some help from legal and those types of things. But to be a partner with the people that expect you to help them hire and help them manage and lead. And so figuring out strategically, am I going to do all this, Is that my purview, Do I partner with my operations folks, my marketing folks? How much education do I provide them? That's being the strategic business partner. This is what it is, and it'll continue to be dynamic. For the HR professional is, where do I fit in? How do I help it get to the strategy? And how do I partner with the business to get this accomplished?
You know, that leads us right into, you know, what are some of the challenges that the HR professionals are dealing with? And because that's really where we're starting to go, right? These trends are kind of moving us that direction.
Well, I think the economy continues to impact many organizations, and HR definitely can feel that impact. When you know you need to upgrade a system, but you're told, well, just can you make it last another year? You know, can you just keep going? And you know that the return on investment is going to be meaningful, but it works. You know, what they have currently is working, but you know that it will improve customer service. And I think that's an area that HR can do a better job of communicating, is how important, like you mentioned, onboarding. And when we bring people in, if they feel that process of bringing them into the fold is very well done and executed very well, whether it's through the technology of ensuring all their information's correct and they're getting paid on time, or it's, you know, giving them that feeling of welcome to the culture, welcome to your home now, and you belong with us. I think we should do a better job of helping to show how we're an integral part of that. So I think that's a challenge, is with the economy, we may see things that we need, but we're told, you know, wait a little bit longer, or
Right.
you know, that training you really want to do that's going to help with those soft skills that we know we need. Well, maybe we can kick
push
the
it
key. Yeah,
back.
exactly. And I think that is a challenge. So you get creative and you try and figure out ways to take care of your organization.
I think one of the big challenges with HR, and I'm thinking more of that individual who's working in a company, the person who we talked to about at the beginning, who's overwhelmed.
Right.
You know, I'm overwhelmed with my work, with all these documents and paperwork, and I know I should be training and coaching, and I know I should be
Right.
developing programs, but I can't get there.
Right.
And so, you know, what I'd like to say to that individual out there is to don't give up, for one.
Right.
And, you know, don't take it all on.
Right.
Pick a project.
Sure.
Pick something that you know you could shine on and that you'd like to show your managers, your supervisors, your owners of your company. We can make a difference. Let me
Right.
show you how we can do that with just maybe this one piece.
Sure.
And maybe that'll grow and grow and grow. I mean, that's my
Absolutely.
advice
Right.
I
to
love it.
them.
Yeah.
Rachel and
yeah.
Laurie bring up great points, and as part of being the strategic business partner, oftentimes HR professionals think they should wait and ask. When and you brought this up about being proactive or reactive.
Right.
So to be at the table, you have to understand the business and the profitability of the business. And for example, if you wanted to bring on a new human resource management system, you're the one building the business case.
Yeah.
You're not
Yes.
waiting
Yeah.
to
Oh,
hear from the
absolutely.
business about what
Right.
you're in the IT budget. You understand what the IT spend is. You understand strategically what's going on. And for HR2 is you're making conscious decisions about to sub-optimize HR. It sounds contradictory or dichotomous, but let's say you go to the business planning meeting and you say, listen, we can patch this for 2 years. And here's how it's going to be patched.
Right.
And here's the potential implications. But I know strategically that system needs to come first. That's what an HR business partner does.
Like
So this is a good
communication.
example of an action that an HR professional would take that would help to really, you know, sustain the profitability of an organization. You know, having that foresight, being proactive in bringing
Build their
things
own
to the leader.
credibility.
Yes,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
absolutely,
And then when
absolutely.
you ask for the things that are really important, guess what?
Your voice is heard.
Yeah.
Absolutely,
it?
your voice is heard.
Very
And I'd
good.
like to also add education. Continue to self-educate.
Oh, yes.
Whether it doesn't have to be, well, here we are, you know, at a college, but I mean, that would be great. There's a wonderful HR program here
Sure.
that is great.
Sure.
There's organizations out there, associations to be part of, that just interacting and networking with other HR professionals
Absolutely.
Yeah.
helps feed you.
SHRM is one of the best society
Give you
Oh,
great
absolutely.
ideas.
Right?
Yeah, we have a
Absolutely.
wonderful chapter here, the Space Coast Human
Sure,
Resource
sure, there's a
Association.
couple of them.
Yeah, exactly. So even if that HR person out there has this level of frustration about being heard, they're not the cake lady anymore. Their primary job's not just ordering the birthday cake every month, you know?
So
They have a
true.
lot of important things coming down their plate. But keep educating yourself.
Well, I think the final question that I really have is, and I'd love to hear from all three of you, just quickly, what do you feel really delineates a great HR professional to a mediocre HR professional?
I see three things. And the first thing is knowing your leadership's priorities, being very well aware of what your leadership's priorities are, and then figuring out how to take HR to communicate that you're supporting the leadership's priorities. That's super important. The second thing is what Laurie mentioned, which is staying current on HR. That's absolutely critical. And if you haven't been certified, you need to get your certification. It's so important.
And the types of certifications give for somebody that might be new, that's aspiring to HR or thinking about it.
Yeah.
What would those be?
Just a few years ago, there has been a bit of a change, I guess is a way to phrase it. Whereas HRCI was doing the certifications, which was the having your
Professional of Human Resources and Senior
Yes,
Professional of Human Resources.
yes, and then
PHR.
now SHRM has the certification process So they're actually, you could have 2. That's
you
why I
could
have
go
like
to-
10 letters after my name.
So for someone who would be interested in really getting those credentials, they could go to shrm.org
Yes.
and
Oh,
learn more
absolutely.
about the PHR and the
And it's so
SPHR.
worth it. It is so worth it. You learn so much.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Even if you've been in the
field for a
yes,
while.
absolutely.
Yeah.
You still because you know, as Laurie said, you may spend time on one thing, but this way, through your certification process, you're being exposed to everything, and then you start to see things differently at work, broader.
Yeah, you got different lenses to look through, right?
Yeah.
What else? Is there one or two other points?
So from a business partner perspective, it is in the nature of it. So understand the business. It's amazing how many human resource professionals do not understand how the business operates,
Wow.
nor how it becomes profitable or more profitable. And the other thing, if you want to specialize in moving to the strategic level, understand strategy. So get out of just the HR field and study strategy. So know your business and then figure out where you want to fit in and also pursue that educationally and professionally.
And so maybe something that they could do is actually begin to do a rotation, perhaps. Well, we're going to have to leave it on that note. And I want to thank all 3 of you for being here, and HRSS Consulting for allowing you to have time to meet with me and share your expertise.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, on behalf of my guest and everyone here on the set of Your Careers, thank you for watching, and remember, be career happy.
More information about this program is available online at millermediagroup.org.